Becoming the teacher I had always admired. Today is observation day. It's not my first time, but I still feel nervous every time. But it's okay. I have a necklace that supports me through tough times. It's a necklace with a design of stars. The only one of its kind in the world, given to me by someone special. Today, I put on the necklace and headed to school. When I arrive at school, the students start coming in. One of them catches my eye, winks at me, and then looks surprised when noticing my necklace. With that expression lingering in my heart, the class begins. Thanks to the necklace, the class receives positive feedback not only from the students but also from their parents, which makes me feel relieved. I'm glad that all the effort I put into today's lesson was worth it. Feeling content, my voice grows louder as I see the students off. As the class ends, someone suddenly speaks to me.
This is matching, isn't it?
Huh? Surprised, I looked at her necklace. There, I see the same star necklace as mine.
Goodbye, Miss Hannah.
Goodbye. Be careful on your way home. I watched the students energetically running off with backpacks that seemed to be more than half their size. I see this scene 5 days a week, yet it never fails to dazzle me so much that I can't help but squint. A few years ago, I achieved my long-held goal of becoming a teacher. Every day is a new experience for a novice teacher. I handle my homeroom class and, even after several years, I'm constantly busy with things I still don't fully understand. However, what brings me the greatest joy is being able to connect with each student individually. As the day of the class observation approaches in a few days, I find myself lost in thought. It's not my first observation day, but I still feel nervous each time and can't calm my anxious feelings since morning. Standing in front of the students' parents, I decided to wear a slightly more formal suit that day. If I wanted to match the necklace, maybe a lighter shade would have been better. I mutter to myself as I spin around in front of the mirror. I have one precious treasure. It's a star necklace. When I wear this necklace during times of unrest, it helps dispel my anxiety. With this necklace on, I'm sure everything will be fine. It's remarkable how far I've come, despite being an ordinary and unremarkable person. As I gaze at myself in the mirror, dressed in the formal suit with the necklace, memories of past events come flooding back to me. I was raised in an orphanage. I have no memories of my parents and don't even remember their faces. Among the other children I lived with in the orphanage, some would occasionally go on overnight stays somewhere. I didn't know if they were with their parents or relatives, but some of them would receive presents on their birthdays or at Christmas. At the time, it seemed like nothing special, but looking back now, I think I felt a mix of envy and a little loneliness. I didn't have anywhere to stay overnight or anyone to send me anything. I had nothing special to boast about or be good at. I didn't have anything to be a source of emotional support for me. I felt like I had nothing, no one, so I closed my heart off and always spent my time alone, away from everyone else. My expression must have been dark, making it difficult for others to approach me. However, there was one girl who always reached out to me. Her name was Aiden, an energetic girl who looked great with her short haircut. I heard that Aiden, like me, had no parents or relatives, but unlike me, she was always surrounded by friends and was bright and kind.
Hannah, let's play together.
Aiden would always call out to me whenever she saw me alone, and she reassured me. It's okay, don't worry. Even though Aiden spoke to me, I couldn't respond well. Despite our similar circumstances, I couldn't bring myself to be as open and outgoing as she was. Nevertheless, Aiden never seemed bothered by this and continued to talk to me many times. It didn't take long for me to open up to her. As I started playing with her, I was able to find my place in the life of the orphanage. She shared everything with me, her joys, her sorrows, and I felt my true emotions coming back to me. She even shared her precious things with me.
You know, I have something I want to give you, but it's a secret from everyone else.
With those words, she led me out to the orphanage's backyard.
This is my treasure. I want to give it to you.
She reached out her hand, and when I opened mine, there was a star bead stone resting there. It was something she cherished. It might have looked like a simple star-shaped bead, but I knew that Aiden, who loved beautiful things, treasured it. Under the bright summer sun, sparkling, I gazed at it intently and asked, "Why are you giving me something so precious to you? Are you sure I can have it?" She hesitated for a moment, then looked at my face and said,
You know, Hannah, they found someone to be my foster parent. I'll be leaving the facility before you.
I was speechless at this sudden news. Are you going to a foster family? I won't be able to live with Aiden anymore. Will I be alone again? Those thoughts raced through my mind in less than a second. I must have had a stiff expression on my face. While she was looking at my face like that, she continued,
If I'm gone, you might get lonely.
She took my hand and placed the star-shaped beads in it.
So, I'm giving you my treasure. Because it's me. Since I'm always with you, Hannah, you'll be okay. Stay strong.
I held on to the star-shaped beads while crying. My body trembled at the thought of someone caring so much about me in this world. And my body trembled at the thought of losing such a caring best friend. I wanted to accept her kind feelings. I strongly felt that I had to accept them and do my best. For the first time, I felt an overflowing trust in my heart, and I couldn't stop crying. Thank you, I'll be okay knowing this feeling. Aiden, thank you, thank you. Be happy. I repeated those words over and over again as I cried. I remember her also nodding and smiling through her tears. After a while, Aiden journeyed from the orphanage to her foster home. It was a refreshing autumn day, yet my heart felt as if a chilly wind was blowing through it. The days without Aiden became lonely. But I had the star-shaped beads. She was always with me through these beads, allowing me to maintain some semblance of normalcy in my life. There were many things I looked forward to, one of which was the events held occasionally at the orphanage. These were community-driven events like table tennis classes and cooking workshops. The first event after her departure was a jewelry-making class. Each time, a volunteer teacher would come to the class. The women who came to the jewelry class were very kind, and I affectionately called one of them Mrs. Emma and admired her greatly. Sensei Emma, a skilled housewife who made jewelry as a hobby, was a wonderful teacher, although I understand that now as an adult. At the time, she seemed like an impressive teacher to me. I made a bold request to Mrs. Emma. I wanted to turn the star-shaped beads, my precious treasure from Aidini, into a necklace. I wanted to wear this memorable star-shaped bead, filled with her heartfelt wishes for my well-being, to lift my spirits whenever I wore it. I earnestly conveyed these feelings to Mrs. Emma while showing her the star-shaped ornament. She listened attentively to my story and thought for a while.
Hannah, first of all, these star-shaped beads are quite intricate, aren't they? Normally, Turning them into jewelry would be challenging.
Does that mean it's impossible? Feeling sad, tears welled up in my eyes. She gently smiled and shook her head.
No, there's a way.
She took the star-shaped beads from my hand and gently placed them on her palm.
These star-shaped ornaments hold precious memories for you. I want to help make your wish to always carry these memories with you come true. It will be a bit challenging, but do you think you can handle it?
Overjoyed by her words, I jumped up. Please teach me. I'll do my best. First, thread the star-shaped beads onto the chain. In this way, Mrs. Emma taught me an advanced processing method that isn't commonly done, especially for someone as young as I was. It required patience and meticulous work over time. After hearing the explanation and expressing my determination to proceed, she nodded in agreement.
Well then, Hannah, let's work hard together.
She listened attentively as I earnestly explained what I wanted to achieve. She guided me through what was necessary and how to attach the slide holes, making me think through each step and ensuring I understood. As I desperately worked on making the handmade necklace, I began to feel the joy of being taught and the pleasure of learning. She taught me with a serious expression, never showing a hint of annoyance. After a long time, the necklace was completed. The stars on the necklace seemed to shine happily.
Hannah, you did a great job to the end. I'm sure your friend will be delighted too.
Seeing my completed necklace, she was as delighted as if it were her accomplishment. It was the first time I had met an adult like that. I wanted to become an adult like her. I wanted to become an adult who could be approached by children in this way. I wanted to become a teacher who could teach children like Mrs. Emma. This experience led me to aspire to become a teacher. Today is Observation Day. I am wearing that necklace close to my heart again today. This necklace has been with me on many important occasions throughout my life. Using this handmade necklace filled with memories as my emotional support, I have persevered until today. The handmade necklace has gradually aged and even come close to breaking at times. However, each time, I reinforced it, repaired it, made slight adjustments, and continued using it up to this day. The methods of reinforcement and repair were not my ideas. They were taught to me by Mrs. Emma. When she taught me how to make the necklace, she didn't just teach me how to craft accessories. She also taught me maintenance and repair methods that I would need in the future. She prepared me with the means to overcome difficulties on my own if they were to arise in the future. Mrs. Emma's guidance, where she imagines and involves herself in her students' lives far beyond, is the ideal of an educator in my opinion. As a teacher, I vowed to never forget this ideal. Observation Day in the classroom carries a different kind of tension. During my first observation day as a teacher, I was so nervous that I couldn't even look at the parents of the students. Now, I can calmly survey the surroundings and recognize many familiar faces. I wonder if I'm starting to get used to this. No, maybe it's also thanks to Aiden's necklace, I thought to myself as I looked around the classroom. As I surveyed the room, I noticed a person among the adults standing at the back whom I had never seen before. Could that be Josh's grandmother? John is a lively boy in the class I teach who talks to me every day. I remembered something he had said recently.
Hey, you know what? My grandma is coming to the next class observation. Mom and Dad couldn't come because they had to work, and I was feeling lonely, but since Grandma is coming, I'm going to do my best.
He often shares what happens at home with me.
My grandma is looking forward to meeting the teacher I always talk about.
Come to think of it, he had mentioned something like that. I wonder how he talks about me at home. Oh, really? Then let's work hard in math so you can shine, I replied, and he made a displeased face. But then he quickly straightened his expression and said determinedly,
I want to show Grandma my good side.
After that, he tackled his weak subject of math diligently, studying hard with his textbook. As I was recalling this, our eyes met, mine at the front of the classroom and John's grandmother's in the back. He smiled kindly and winked at me. Then, her gaze shifted to my necklace, and she appeared slightly surprised. I was curious about her expression, but it was observation day and I couldn't engage in conversation, so I just returned her smile and continued.
Goodbye, teacher. See you tomorrow.
Today being observation day, school ended with this. Students and parents exchanged greetings as they left the classroom. Thanks to the necklace, I felt relieved that the class received positive feedback from both students and parents. I was glad that the effort I put into today's lesson paid off. Feeling content, my voice grew unintentionally louder as I saw the last student off and stepped into the hallway. There, I noticed John's grandmother standing alone in the hallway. It seemed she had been waiting for me to come out. I believe you're John's grandmother. Thank you for coming today. I approached her and spoke.
Miss Hannah, thank you for always taking care of John.
She smiled as she looked at my necklace.
Our necklaces match, don't they?
Huh? During the observation, I had been too nervous to look closely at her, so I was surprised and took another look at the brooch on her chest. There was a handmade necklace. It's unusual to see star-shaped beads made into a necklace. I was impressed because I had never seen a handmade necklace with star-shaped beads other than mine, and I stared at it closely. It was carefully crafted to secure the stars in place. It seemed to have the same construction as my necklace, but hers was undoubtedly several steps above mine in skill and was a wonderful piece of work. What happened to this necklace? It's the first time I've seen a star necklace other than mine, John's grandmother said, gazing at the necklace. For some reason, her voice was soothing, with a softness that felt familiar.
This necklace is made from memories with my best friend's family, turned into jewelry.
She explained. Did you make it yourself? I couldn't hide my surprise upon hearing that she had crafted it.
May I share the story of my best friend with you?
She had a close friend whom she trusted deeply. Her friend had always wanted children but couldn't conceive due to health reasons. Refusing to give up, they finally adopted a child from an orphanage. The adoptive family and the child developed a wonderful relationship and became a truly happy family, just like their own. However, tragically, they were all killed in a large fire. When she rushed to her friend's home, everything had already burnt down, leaving nothing behind. She searched through the ashes hoping to find something left by her friend's family and discovered only the charred stars. She brought them back and turned them into this necklace. As I listened to her story, my heart raced, and my legs began to tremble. The quiet tale she shared with me left me deeply shaken. A handmade necklace with stars.
Yes. The girl my friend raised as an adoptive parent loved making handmade accessories. She showed me some of her creations.
She replied. Aiden. At the certainty in my voice, she looked up. With trembling lips, I told her about Aiden, about how I grew up in an orphanage, and about the beautiful star ornament that she cherished. I explained how I had relied on that star ornament she gave me to keep going. Was she gone? The shock was overwhelming for me, who had always hoped to meet her somewhere again someday. Unable to contain myself, tears overflowed from my eyes. It must be her. This necklace. It's handmade. I learned from a volunteer teacher. Suddenly, I looked at the necklace of the woman in front of me. Could it be Mrs. Emma? It was indeed her. I realized that John's grandmother was Mrs. Emma. Strangely, despite not noticing until now, her gentle voice and direct gaze remained unchanged.
Hannah. You're still the same Hannah from back then,
she said, also shedding tears.
Your friend's adopted child was indeed named Aiden.
The place where Aiden went as an adopted child was Emma's friend's home. I once again realized that Aiden was no longer in this world. Mrs. Emma said that the memento from her friend's family was only the star-shaped beads that Aiden cherished. The necklace around my neck also became the sole memento of Aiden. Aiden's stars, always supporting me, even today. Yet, she was no longer in this world. I couldn't believe it, and I didn't want to believe it. Tears uncontrollably overflowed from my eyes, unable to stop. Mrs. Emma gently wiped my tears with a handkerchief and said,
Hannah. I, too, was deeply saddened by the loss of my friend's family, and my heart was almost broken. But at that time, there was something that supported me.
Saying this, she wiped my tears and then held my hands with both of hers.
Hannah, it was you. Your presence supported me.
I was surprised, staring at her face. My tears stopped with surprise, and the last drop trickled down my cheek. Why was I, who had only learned accessory making from her years ago, supporting her? She looked into the distance for a moment and then spoke about that time. She and her friend had been close since they were young, discussing things like wanting children and deciding to adopt. Even after Aiden came to her friend's family, they continued to consult with each other. They rejoiced together in the days when her friend raised Aiden with love like her own child and built a happy family. For Mrs. Emma, who had witnessed her friend's efforts and happiness, accepting the loss of her friend's family was unbearable, leading to days of despair.
At such times, I remembered Hannah, whom I met at the accessory making class at the children's facility as a volunteer.
I appealed to her that day, expressing my desire to always be with the star-shaped beads, my one precious memory, which I had while living in the orphanage.
Remembering your earnest attempt to challenge the difficult task of processing accessories in your determination to be with your precious memories,
Mrs. Emma said, turning her gaze towards me, her eyes full of tears as she smiled.
Remembering your earnest efforts, I was able to overcome the separation from my friend, she said, recalling each word I had appealed to her.
She mentioned that she felt the same desire to preserve cherished memories, whether or not the star-shaped beads I had and the ones she found were from the same owner. Afterward, she carefully polished the star-shaped beads she found in the burnt ruins and painstakingly crafted them into a necklace over time. Just like me, with the single-minded desire to always be with the memories of her friend. She also mentioned that during difficult times, she wore the star necklace. It seems that she had been living with the help of the star necklace throughout her life. I was greatly surprised to realize that I had continued to exist within Mrs. Emma. The day I met Mrs. Emma was a special day for me, marking the beginning of my goal to become a teacher and the day she became the ideal teacher in my heart. I believe she was the first trustworthy adult for me, someone I could rely on as a child without parents. The encounter with her, guided by Aiden and her memories, has continued to support me throughout my life. Mrs. Emma, it's the other way around. It's been me who's been supported by you. I couldn't contain my overflowing emotions and grabbed her hand, shouting,
Hannah.
I shared with her all the feelings I had for her from the day we made the necklace together, along with everything that happened until I became a teacher.
The events of that day have been the support for your life.
She had a very surprised expression. We realized that our mutual existence had supported each other. Mrs. Emma closed her eyes for a moment, took a small deep breath, and then slowly looked at my face. She reached out and gently touched my necklace.
Aiden gave you these star-shaped beads so that you wouldn't just stay sad, Hannah, but keep moving forward,
she said softly. Then she let go of my necklace and gently touched the necklace around her neck.
Aiden wanted me to keep moving forward too, not just stay in sorrow. That's why she left this star pendant in the ashes of the fire, for me, in place of my friend,
she explained. We both gazed at our respective necklaces. Because of Aiden's star-shaped beads, I met you and have been living my life to the fullest. Mrs. Emma, it's thanks to Aiden's beads that you remembered me too. It's all thanks to Aiden.
I'm sure Aiden would say, I'm just here with you and that you succeeded because of your efforts, Hannah. I think that's what she'd say,
she reflected. I shook my head, feeling as if Aiden had indeed spoken to me, and I felt a little happy. We looked at each other and then chuckled softly together.
John always talked about you, Hannah. He thought you were a good teacher, so he was looking forward to today's observation day. Thank you for always being there for him.
No, I'm always worried if I'm doing teacher-like things properly. But if he thinks I'm a good teacher, it's because I'm imitating you, Mrs. Emma. Once again, we locked eyes and chuckled softly together. She narrowed her eyes, now with a few more wrinkles than in my memory, and smiled with the same unchanged face. The hallway had gradually emptied of people and became quiet. Mrs. Emma and I walked out of the school building side by side. Outside, the bright afternoon light was shining. A pleasant breeze gently blew around us. The sky was clear blue with scattered white clouds.
Hannah, I was truly happy to know that you're working hard as a teacher. I've felt supported by the little you from that day, but now I feel like I'm being supported by you of today,
she said, stopping and looking straight at me. Mrs. Emma, you have been and will always be the ideal teacher for me. Thank you for showing me the way forward. She then stepped forward and put her arm around my shoulder. I reciprocated by gently hugging her back. I'll see you at the school gate. We then parted and walked side by side towards the school gate. Suddenly, Mrs. Emma stopped and looked up at the sky.
You know, above that sky, there's Aiden and her family.
I also looked up at the sky. I still can't believe that Aiden is no longer in this world, and it's truly sad. But that's only because I didn't know. Even when Aiden was alive and even after her physical presence left this world, she was always supporting me. That's the incredible power of her feelings and memories, which remain unwavering no matter what. What an amazing strength. Moreover, the fact that she has been supporting me unknowingly supported Mrs. Emma as well. Just how powerful is that? Aiden is truly incredible. I believe that Aiden will continue to watch over me, and so will her dear family member.
I wonder if Aiden is watching us now, seeing us getting along and smiling.
I feel like she's saying, don't be lonely. When thinking of the deceased, it's said that flowers rain down in the afterlife. I wonder if right now, there's a downpour of flowers where they are. I hope so. Thank you, Aiden. I'll keep doing my best from now on. It's going to be okay. As we looked up at the sky, out-of-season cherry blossoms rained down on us, and our necklaces sparkled brightly. How did you find this story? Please remember to subscribe to the channel. Well then, let's meet again in the next video.
I have an older sister who is 2 years older than me. My sister, Arya, and I have always been close since we were young, and she used to take care of me a lot. Even after Arya got married, we continued to have interactions, and I became close with her triplets and husband as well. However, one day, Arya and her husband suddenly passed away. The 3 young children were left behind in sorrow, and I struggled to accept the reality. But I couldn't continue grieving forever. If I slept, the cruel reality was that the sun would rise again the next morning. I made up my mind to live brightly for Arya's sake. My name is Gianna. I am now 28 years old and a professional basketball player. Since I was a kid, I've been completely focused on basketball, so while my classmates were getting married, I missed my chance. But thanks to Arya's presence, I never felt lonely. My sister's name is Arya, and she got married at 21 years old. By the time she was 22, she had given birth to triplets. At that time, I had just graduated from high school and was still living at home. Arya, who had moved out ahead of me, often brought her children home, and I would play with them. Arya's husband, who was 5 years older than her, was a good person and took care of me as well. However, whenever I visited Arya's house, I felt uneasy. The reason was Arya's in-laws, her husband's parents. Both of them lived with Arya and her husband and seemed to have opinions about everything Arya did. So whenever Arya returned home, she would often vent her frustrations to me and our mother.
Mom, listen. My mother-in-law keeps commenting on the ingredients I use while cooking. She'll say things like, "How about this ingredient?" or "Benjamin grew up eating this flavor."
Benjamin is Arya's husband's name. Even our mother, who kindly listened to Arya's stories, had a somewhat puzzled expression. Understandably so, as our father was working currently in Canada and lived alone. That's why our mother couldn't be too forceful with Arya's in-laws. Our mother, who wasn't naturally assertive, was most concerned about causing any harm to me or Arya by speaking up. Arya also understood this, so she just wanted someone to listen. She wasn't seeking advice.
Gianna, be careful with your in-laws when you get married too.
I'll consider that when I decide to quit basketball. That's still a long way off.
Really? You're such a basketball fanatic.
We laughed together. Arya and I always have this kind of banter. We don't argue as sisters, we just share laughter.
By the way, Benjamin and I are planning a trip together.
Oh, that sounds great. Where to?
Italy.
When I heard Arya's story, I couldn't help but feel envious. Italy was a country I had always wanted to visit. However, in contrast to my excitement, Arya seemed somewhat downcast.
Benjamin won tickets through a company event, but they're only valid for a pair. So, we're worried about leaving the kids.
Upon further discussion, it turned out that initially, they hesitated to go because of their children. However, for some reason, Arya's mother-in-law strongly encouraged them, and so Arya and her husband decided to go. According to Arya, they probably think they'll have a leisurely time without the two of them around. Furthermore, Arya has some concerns.
Noah, especially our third child, doesn't warm up to my mother-in-law. The other two also seem a bit distant.
It seems Arya has more on her mind than just the trip. By the way, when are you leaving?
In a week. It's a 4-night, 6-day trip.
Upon hearing Arya's response, an idea occurred to me. I happen to have time off that week. So, I'll take care of the 3 kids. As I said that, Arya's face seemed to brighten a little. Even I want Arya to enjoy her trip without any worries. If there's something I can do to help, it's only natural. I had no idea at the time that this would turn into a house sitter in hell. On the day of Arya and her husband's trip, my mother, who works as a nurse, left early in the morning for her day shift at the hospital. Initially, I had planned to see them off by myself, but their children also wanted to go with me, so I took them along. They probably wanted to be with their parents for as long as possible. After seeing them off at the airport, I took their 3 children, Oliver, Levi, and Noah. Arya's in-laws were supposed to meet us at their house. All right, kids. Let's head home, I called out, and all 3 nodded in agreement. Their synchronized response impressed me. Being triplets, they seemed perfectly in tune with each other. When we arrived at Arya and her husband's home, her in-laws welcomed us. Arya's mother-in-law approached me, and to my eyes, she resembled a witch. Heavy makeup, stiff hair cascading down her shoulders, and bold lipstick that would stand out even in the dark. Hello. I'll be taking care of the kids starting today, I said politely. Her response caught me off guard.
Well, there's a lot for you to do. First, prepare dinner. And I want to take a bath, so clean the bathroom quickly. We're also out of shampoo, so buy some later.
As we exchanged greetings, she continued listing demands one after another. I was dumbfounded. I hadn't come here to be a servant. My purpose was solely to look after the kids while Arya was away. Yet this woman treated me like a housekeeper. I mustered the courage to reply. I'm here to take care of the 3 children. She objected to me saying that.
So, you plan to make these 3 do household chores?
What? I was taken aback.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Since my husband is away golfing for the next 3 days, I'm in charge of this house.
In charge? I muttered unconsciously, unsure if she heard me. She glanced back at me briefly as we entered the house and disappeared into the living room. Once inside, the kids headed straight for the washroom. Their synchronized run made me smile. But then her next words stunned me.
You 3 are so noisy. I can't hear the TV.
She shouted. The kids froze in place. Finally, little Noah mumbled.
I'm sorry.
Without thinking, I stepped in. Excuse me, but that's no way to speak to them. They're still in 3rd grade, after all. Her icy response cut deep.
Their grades don't matter. It's about what I think.
How cruel. I whispered.
You too. Arya always challenges me too.
She said, her words sharp as a blade of ice. It hurt to see her direct this at the young kids. I'll take care of these children. Please relax, I said, choosing my words carefully. If I could keep her irritation away from the kids, it was worth it. Or rather, I hoped it would be. After that, the first day flew by in the blink of an eye. There were a few moments when her dissatisfaction seemed directed at the kids, but I quickly sensed it and avoided any conflict. Perhaps my basketball defensive skills helped. Still, I wondered if Arya always received such treatment. The more time I spent with this person, the more I understood why Arya would come home and vent her frustrations. And Arya isn't the only one dealing with her. With her husband and kids to care for, plus Arya's father-in-law joining the mix, it's terrifying to think about. A while back, Arya confided in me about something like this.
My father-in-law does nothing around the house and complains that the vacuum cleaner is noisy.
That's terrible.
So, guess what he said when I asked him to move a little?
Maybe something like, "Shut up." Arya shook her head vigorously.
He demanded money. He's going to kill time by playing outside, so he wants some money. What's more, he threatens to show no mercy if I secretly tell Benjamin.
That's awful. Given that Arya is a stay-at-home mom, she spends a lot of time with her in-laws. The stress accumulates daily. Yet despite it all, Arya can still laugh and share these stories. I admire her strength. On the first night at Arya and her husband's house, after Arya's mother-in-law had gone to bed, the 3 kids came to my room.
Gianna, we want to play basketball.
Their sudden request surprised me. What made you want to play basketball all of a sudden? They began excitedly explaining. Apparently, they watched a basketball movie, and Arya showed them videos of me playing, igniting their passion for basketball. Although they practiced with friends after school, they were struggling to improve. So, they decided to ask me when I arrived. How about trying tomorrow? It's Saturday, and there's a gym nearby that I occasionally use for practice. Their eyes sparkled as they replied, "Yes." I welcomed the break from being cooped up at home. And knowing that these kids were growing to love basketball because of me made me incredibly happy. The next day, even though it was only 7 a.m., the 3 kids were already getting ready.
Gianna, hurry.
As I got up, the 3 of them pounced on me, fully prepared to leave. Perhaps hearing their voices, Arya's mother-in-law woke up.
Hold on! Why are you so noisy early in the morning? Explain what's going on, Gianna.
I promised to teach these kids basketball.
What's so great about a sport where you just put a ball through a hoop? You can go, but make sure you finish your household chores.
With that, she disappeared back into her bedroom. I hurriedly finished laundry and breakfast preparations as I felt the pressure of keeping them waiting. The kids observed me while practicing their ball handling. When we arrived at the gym, the 3 of them were full of energy. I also rediscovered the joy of simply enjoying basketball, something I had forgotten since becoming a professional player. As a professional, my focus shifted to winning and losing, which was only natural. It was tied to income and, fundamentally, my job. Seeing these 3 kids genuinely playing basketball reminded me of something I had lost. "All right, everyone, gather up." I taught them everything from basics to advanced techniques. Occasionally, they struggled, but their sense was better than I expected, and they picked things up quickly. They were beyond a 3rd grade level. Not out of favoritism, but I sensed a natural basketball talent in these triplets. They had dribbling skills and shooting form stability that even older kids struggled with. Maybe they could aim for a professional career. Curious, I asked them, "What are your dreams for the future?" The moment I saw their reactions, I realized it might have been a silly question. Their eyes sparkled.
Professional basketball players.
As expected of triplets, they harmoniously declared their dream. Hearing their dreams, I decided to support them wholeheartedly. All right. I'll turn you all into outstanding professional basketball players. Let's practice. They enthusiastically started practicing. But our joyful time was short-lived. When we returned home, we faced despair.
Gianna, come here. I need to talk to you.
Her expression was unusually serious. What happened? The triplets also seemed concerned about our unusual behavior. Unaware of their presence, Aria's mother-in-law continued.
Benjamin's plane crashed during landing.
Unexpected news plunged my world into darkness. My spine turned cold. Crashed? Are they okay? Her quiet headshake told the whole story. The kids came out, clinging to me as if their souls had been ripped away. To them, losing not only their mother but also their father, Benjamin, was an immeasurable sorrow. Tears streamed down my face. 1 month after Aria and her husband's passing, the remains that arrived in the United States couldn't be definitively identified as theirs, but the returned wedding ring was undoubtedly theirs. The funeral concluded, and my mother, who was much deeper in grief than I, traveled to Canada where my father was. My performance in games suffered. It became clear how significant Aria's presence had been. I hadn't realized how painful it would be to never see someone I loved again. Eventually, unable to continue playing due to emotional strain, I retired from professional basketball. A few weeks later, I started working as an ordinary office employee. And then, it happened. Out of the blue, Aria's mother-in-law called me. Hello, it's been a while.
We've decided to move to California.
Why so suddenly?
There's no point being where Benjamin isn't. We're going to live carefree. Now, to the main point. Since you don't seem likely to get married, take care of the 3 kids.
She conveyed her demand and chuckled over the phone. I couldn't fathom her true intentions, but given her personality, the triplets must have been an inconvenience. I decided to accept her words. Is that okay? I'd be happy to. Satisfied with my response, she raised her voice slightly.
Finally, I'll have more free time. Thank you, Gianna.
Her thank you was undoubtedly sarcastic. I understood she didn't mean it sincerely. But I also felt lonely being alone in this house that my mother had left behind. 3 days after the call with Aria's mother-in-law, life with the 3 kids Aria left behind began. Unlike when we played basketball together at the gym, their faces were understandably somber. Of course, they had lost both parents simultaneously. It would be strange for them to be cheerful. But I couldn't afford to wallow in sadness. If I did, we'd all fall apart. I vowed to protect these 3 kids no matter what. Once more, all of you, tell me your dreams for the future. This time, there was a brief pause, unlike before. But I waited for their words without adding anything. Noah, the youngest, spoke first.
Professional basketball players. Like Gianna.
The other two followed.
Yeah, me too.
And
I'll become a pro too.
then let's seriously aim for it. I'll wholeheartedly nurture all of you. Life after that took a whirlwind turn from our previous routine. First, after work, we started running together as a group of 4. During any free moments, I encouraged them to handle the basketball, and soon enough, their video game sessions disappeared. All 3 of them were intensely focused on basketball. On weekends, we repeated basic drills and reviewed techniques. Gradually, they entered 7th grade. Even after advancing to high school, all 3 of them naturally chose to join the basketball clubs. The names of the triplets quickly echoed through the basketball world. But this wasn't the end for them. The 3 of them received attention for their basketball skills, but ended up going to different high schools. Each received sports scholarships from their respective schools. When this fact became public, it shocked the basketball community that had expected the triplets to play together. Why attend different high schools? I genuinely wondered. However, their responses made me realize it was a foolish question. Noah spoke up first.
Because if we're on the same team, we won't get to compete against the strong players.
I still vividly remember the impact of those words. These kids were serious. All 3 of them enrolled in different powerhouse schools and joined their basketball teams. Naturally, this became a hot topic. But it didn't end there for my trio. They didn't just stay in the spotlight, they excelled. Each of them secured a starting position as freshmen. Eventually, the 3 schools faced off in a tournament. As first-year starters, they were naturally part of the competition. I had wanted to attend the tournament, but work during a busy period prevented me. So, I waited for their reports. Noah was the first to call.
Gianna, my team won!
Any of the 3 winning wouldn't have been surprising. Next came Oliver's call.
In the final match, we played against Levi's school. We missed winning by just 1 point.
Oliver, the eldest, spoke tearfully. I offered him words of encouragement. Shortly after, Levi called with good news. After winning and being runners-up, the schools are embarking on an intensive training camp in California this year. I initially wondered why California, but it quickly made sense. The practice partners are experienced basketball players from a certain circle. In other words, it's a training camp where high school students challenge adults. Indeed, practicing against stronger opponents is valuable experience. Unfortunately, Oliver couldn't participate, but he didn't dwell on it. From the day Levi and Noah went to the camp, Oliver increased his self-training intensity beyond the usual. The camp lasts for 1 week. I wonder how much stronger Levi and Noah will become during that time. Excitedly waiting, I suddenly found myself at the final day. On the evening of the last day, as I prepared dinner and waited, the doorbell rang. Have they returned? I wondered as I opened the door. To my surprise, Aria's parents-in-law, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, stood there. What on earth brings you here? I asked while opening the door. Aria's mother-in-law tearfully pleaded with me.
I didn't hear about it. How can those kids be so good at basketball? What's happening?
Aria's father-in-law added.
Why didn't you tell us? We've been embarrassed.
Both of them seemed upset. However, I couldn't understand why they suddenly brought this up. Embarrassment, what do you mean? I inquired. Aria's grandmother explained.
Levi and Noah were there. At the basketball training camp, I work as a janitor in that gym.
And? I asked.
Don't play dumb. Those kids are apparently the best at their respective schools.
She replied. I still didn't quite grasp her point. But since their conversation was something I didn't need to hear, I couldn't help but laugh. Clearly offended, she angrily confronted me.
Why are you laughing? Even though people were wondering who I was, those two acted like they didn't know me. And they had the nerve to say, "Please leave the court. You're disrupting our practice."
Aria's father-in-law chimed in.
My poor wife!
Aria's mother-in-law seemed unable to tolerate being embarrassed in public. Or perhaps she couldn't stand being treated as a stranger by the boys. While I still didn't fully understand her intentions, one thing was clear. Well, outsiders can be a nuisance. Even if they knew someone, it was unacceptable to interrupt important practice sessions. If those three become professional players, I'm sure she'd boldly step onto the court as their grandmother. In response to my words, she hesitated briefly but then retorted with a pout.
After all I've done raising those kids, they treat me like a stranger the moment they succeed. Absolutely. If you have a bad mother, your child won't grow up to be a good person.
Her words struck a nerve, and I immediately fired back. They never really warmed up to you, to begin with. And please refrain from insulting Aria. I felt anger rising within me after a long time, but even stronger was the indignation coming from the two who had just returned.
What are you doing in someone else's house, Grandma? And you even stepped onto the court. Just like Gianna said, we never liked you from the start.
The two of them were already over 5 feet 11 inches tall. Startled by their voices from behind, she seemed like a frightened child. Aria's grandmother.
You. Too.
Finally, she managed to speak, and Noah continued relentlessly.
You're probably upset because your abandoned grandkids are succeeding, right? Given your personality, you seem like the type to enjoy taking the upper hand. So you wanted to brag about being our grandmother, but we treated you like a stranger.
Their words seemed to hit the mark. Although she seemed to want to say something, no words came out. And her expression showed frustration. So, what's the reason for both of you being here? Even when I asked again, the two just stood there. I assume you didn't come all this way just to demand something now that you know they're succeeding? I continued my inquiry, but they crumbled further. Their silence confirmed that their purpose aligned with my observation. Feeling thoroughly exasperated, the kids piled on mercilessly.
Don't get ahead of yourself. We won't be seeing you anymore.
As expected of triplets. Although they attended different schools, their thoughts and emotional connection were flawless. And finally, one more person. Oliver, who had just returned from school club activities, delivered the final blow.
You know, we're aware that you were talking to this old man with annoyance about us, who lost our mother and had nowhere to go.
Well,
I was in a state of confusion at that time.
The two quickly offered excuses. However, the three responded in unison, leaving no room for doubt.
Then keep being confused forever. Don't ever get involved with us and Gianna again.
Their seamless coordination left Aria's parents-in-law stunned, and they hastily left the scene. Watching their retreating figures, the triplets laughed and said, "Pathetic." Their words made me laugh too. Since then, those two have completely disappeared from our lives. Time passed, and the triplets' high school days came to an end. Unfortunately, none of them secured victory in the final tournament of their third year. However, their post-high school paths were already guaranteed. Naturally, they were all headed toward becoming professional basketball players. And this time, all three would play on the same team. Their story became a hot topic, and there wasn't anyone in the pro basketball world who didn't know the triplets. Having witnessed their growth from the sidelines, I felt that their teamwork was unparalleled. It wasn't about logic. It was an invisible bond unique to triplets that seemed to guide them in the same direction. As their aunt and surrogate parent, it was heartwarming to watch their success. Although my life as a basketball player had crumbled, I now aim to support these three forever.
How did you like this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Until next time in the next video.